entrepreneurs, movers and shakers in the industry. Welcome to the People of Power Show.
I know I'm trying not to touch my hair. I do that every show. Every show I do it. Like I gotta
just let it go.
Yes, just let it go and let it flow. Okay. So actually, you should be tagged now.
Okay, perfect.
And then will you be able to share on yours?
The People of Power Show.
People of Power Show, or the People of Power Show. Hey, everybody. Hey, good evening.
Hey.
I'm going to start sharing with my peoples, and you can start sharing with your peoples. And if you are looking and you love us and you care about us, I would ask you to share as well. This is actually going to be a very informative show this evening. I try to bring you the information to the community that is important and that affects us. So I know if you have a parent out there, hello, Mario, if you have a parent or anybody, I would say older than you that you care about, it's very important that you share or at least listen to the information. But I always tell people to share something, even if it doesn't impact you directly. I promise you it's going to impact somebody that you may know or you don't know, and it may impact you later. I just got informed that this month is Alzheimer's month. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that most people know what Alzheimer's is, and I'm acting like I got it now. I'm forgetting what I'm saying. And dementia, which is very, very, very prominent in our community, and a lot of times we just don't know because, like we were sharing about the resources that we're given. Mm-hmm. So I feel my job is when I find out something, I gotta tell you so you know, because we have a tendency of Wakanda has a tendency of acting like we didn't know, right. And we're not informed, and the other people know more than we do. And I think because we are not fond of education, we are not gravitating to things that we need for us, the things that we want. If it's something flashy or it's drama, we gravitate to that. But the things that we need to know about to better ourselves, we kind of like, yeah, whatever, we'll get to it. But it will affect you, just like the nurses and everything like that. You need them. So I want to just thank you for sitting with me. I'm going to do my brief intro because I know it's going to be some people that don't know me who's on your side. So I'm Kitty London, host and creator of the People of Power Show, and every week I sit down with movers and shakers, CEOs, entrepreneurs, community leaders, some celebrities, and people who are just doing amazing things. And today I'm sitting next to Andraya.
Yes, you got it right.
Andraya. Okay, and she's a CEO. I love sitting next to CEOs is it IMAtter?
Yes.
Okay. IMAtter. Okay, so we're interactive, and hello, Anisha. We're interactive on our show, so we see people talk, we talk back to them. We are friendly on the People of Power Show. We want to make sure that they stay engaged and involved, and if anything affects you and she can answer it, she will do her best to do that.
Yes, I will.
All right, so what we're going to do is a brief introduction. While you're doing that, I'm going to share with all my groups, and basically what we call is a background check. So I want to get people to know you before we get into like the meat and potatoes of the whole interview tonight. Good. All right.
Sounds like a plan.
Here's the mic.
Thank you very much. I'll take it
You're
from you first. So good evening, everyone that is joining us. My name is Andraya Brennan. I am the Chief Executive Officer of IMAtter Adult Day Center. We are actually in the Boynton Beach area off of Woolbright and Military Trail. So a little bit about me and how I came to this vision of IMAtter. About 5 years ago, I was sitting with my dad and I said, I know God has more in store for me. And
won't he do it?
Yes, he will. I knew I did not want to do the 9 to 5, and I also wanted to really be more impactful with families dealing with Alzheimer's dementia. So I started in the hospice world. I work for a hospice provider here in Palm Beach County. I've also helped staff traveling nurses all over the country. Mm-hmm. I became a consultant for families dealing with Alzheimer's dementia, and I started getting calls probably at the middle to latter part of 2015 from caregivers who really trusted me. and they were saying, you know, I have a husband, he's early stage, and I need somewhere for him to be during the day. I'm not ready to place him, but I need something. He needs to be engaged more. So at that time, FAU Memory Center was the only memory center catered to those in the early stages of Alzheimer's dementia. Hey, Sarah, I see you. And then what I decided to do was I prayed. I really did. I prayed and I asked God to guide me and show me the direction he really wanted me to go in. So I spoke with my dad. I said, listen, I have this vision, and I really believe that it could be a success. So ultimately, things moved very fast, and that's why I call it a God moment, because I had this conversation with him in the middle of 2015, and IMAtter opened its doors in March of 2016.
Wow. So was your dad suffering from the disease?
No,
Oh, okay.
no, but
Okay.
I didn't share
Lynn.
this. Hello, Miss Lynn. I'd be remiss to say that I actually lost my mother when I was 23. She was 46 years old. She suffered from what is called a hemorrhagic stroke, which is a pretty massive stroke on the brain that caused paralysis on her right side. It did cause her to have some mild cognitive impairment. So when my mother got home from having her stroke, we had to figure out ways to engage with her. You know, while yes, she wasn't the same, she still deserved a quality of life. So we would have to figure out activities and things for her to do that were attainable.
Okay.
So that kind of started. She has been my muse through all of this. But I know what it's like to be a caregiver, and I know what it's like to watch someone be very healthy one day and everything change the next. And for me, especially in her passing in 2016, it was about resources. You know, we were a young family. We were the family that, you know, didn't see it coming. We didn't see her illness coming. We didn't see her passing coming. And so I needed to educate myself more on resources so that if another family was impacted in any way, I could be able to provide them with such. You know, we didn't know whether or not we should have my mother, you know, at home in a facility. We just didn't know. And I also had a 16-year-old sister who lost her mother. My sister was going into her senior year of high school when my mother passed away. So we were a young family of caregivers, and I would say that the life lesson and the God lesson in that was that illness does not discriminate. It doesn't.
No, you're right.
It doesn't matter what it is. It can be Alzheimer's dementia. It can be a massive stroke. It could be diabetes. It could be high blood pressure. It does not discriminate. And that is why it's so important, like Kitty said, to be aware of services and programs that are out there for us, for everyone. Knowledge is power. Once you have it, it cannot be taken away.
Right.
So IMAtter is actually going to be 4 years old, March the 7th, 2020. And we have serviced over 130 adults that have been diagnosed with early to moderate stages of Alzheimer's dementia. And my goal is ultimately to add quality of life and value to who they are. That is why IMAtter is the name, because there are so many people with this illness that fall between the cracks, that really need the extra engagement, that need someone to love on them, to give them some extra TLC. And that's what we do there. I say love lives at IMAtter because that is exactly how I want someone to feel when they're there.
Because we didn't talk about this, and I want to make sure, because I love to know the purpose and the passion, so I got that now. What did you go to school for?
So, funny story. I went to school for political science.
Wow.
I was planning to be an attorney.
Wow.
And
I always love those stories because I know we kind of skip that, and I always say that to say that sometimes, you know, the calling upon our lives is not what we think it is. We, like you said, you wanted to go to school for this.
Right.
And that was your plan.
Right. Correct. And I ended up, my master's is in public admin, but again, I wanted to go the public service route. I always knew I was called to be a public servant. Okay. Both of my parents were educators. they don't respect educators enough to me in Florida. So I knew I wasn't ready. I wasn't prepared to be an educator, but I wanted to serve others. So my master's is in public admin with a concentration in health admin.
Okay.
But that is not how I started. There was Andraya's plan, and then there was God's path. Right. And so I decided to surrender to Him and let Him do the rest. And that's how I got here.
And it's so funny because when I was reading a little bit, and it was saying about an adult daycare, like you don't hear that too often. You know,
No, you don't.
hear, and if you think about it, everybody who's watching, if you love your parents, right? When you they're like, you should love your parents,
Right.
You know that the roles switch.
They do.
They switch, and even though the parents that we love so much don't want to admit it, but the roles switch, and just like they took us to daycare or care for us, and sometimes they had to hold us and feed us and everything else. One day, if they live long enough, you know, and of course we always want our parents to just be on their own as much as possible.
Of course.
But realization sometimes kicks in, and we become the caretakers of our parents, or caregivers, so to speak. So I am really happy that this is available, because you do see, unfortunately, a lot of elderly people who are alone. Maybe their family and friends really just don't know how to deal with the disease, because it is a very sad disease.
It is.
When people that you love and adore don't even remember your face, or don't know your name, or you're trying to say a good thing, oh, you remember when, and they just kind of give you that blank stare.
It hurts.
And it's like, Mama, it's me, or Daddy, it's me, or Grandma, or Granddaddy. So I know that this service is definitely needed, and the awareness needs to get there. Now, you know, I have medical friends who, you know, I always talk to about it, because I was starting to do research on my own for personal reasons, but I know there's no cure.
No, there is
no cure to dementia or Alzheimer's. There are treatments that can slow it down, the progression down, and there are things that if you start showing signs, from what I'm told, and again, I'm not a doctor. If you're a doctor, you can chime in if you want to.
Yes, you can.
Medical professionals, chime in. There are activities that we can do to help our brains kind of work, you know, puzzles, new experiences, things like that. But I don't know the statistics on how many how many people have it out of, you know, but it's a lot. It's more than, I think it's more than we kind of want to admit.
It is. I will say that the numbers are frightening. Right now, in 2019, there are an estimate 5.8 million people living with this illness. The projection just to kind of sum it up, that is 1 in every 10 persons that are over 65. Okay. And then you have the forward projection, which is 2050, and that's 1 in 3 if we don't find a cure for this.
1 in 3.
1 in 3.
And that's
by 2050. 1 in 3 adults that are 65 and older will be diagnosed with this illness. So that rate alone is alarming. It is. It's frightening. So that's 3 of us in a room, and there's a chance that 1 of us by 2050 would have this. And unfortunately for the African American community, we are 2 times as likely to have this illness as Caucasians, and Hispanics are right at about 1.5 times.
And have they? I mean, like I said, I haven't, you know, and I do need to do more research on it. But are they saying it's because of hereditary? Is it diet? Is it lifestyle? Is it?
It is. It's. I would say that this disease is coupled with a ton of different causes. It used to be for us, it was usually they would say someone was senile, right? Back in the day, Alzheimer's has been around for a very long time. However, now that we are living longer and there have been way more studies and so much more research that has been put into this illness, we are finding ways to diagnose it a little bit sooner. So let's say we're talking about someone that is right at 65. And of course, as we age, our brains shrink. So there's healthy brain shrinkage, and then there is something called amyloid plaque and tau. Those two items basically take over the brain. It's pretty much like they spread almost like a wildfire throughout different parts of the brain. And what a doctor would generally do is do like a CT scan or a PET scan to determine whether or not it's healthy aging of the brain or if that amyloid plaque is there.
So this is very good information. So for example, for the people that are watching or watch later, if you have an aging parent or someone that you care about, it doesn't have to be a parent, but someone that you care about, and let's just say they're having memory issues and you're like, well, maybe you need to get that checked out. The doctor, you go to your doctor and say, I think as we get more aware of things ourselves, we actually need to be advocates of our own health. I love my doctors.
Absolutely.
I love my doctors. But I can tell you this, a lot of times they kind of just go with the norm. Well, you're not really showing, or usually it doesn't happen around, but no, I'm feeling a certain type of way.
Right.
So even if I was 50, and listen, that's like, 15 years below what you said, the age?
The average age is 65.
And if my kids were like, Mom, I just told you that. I'd be like, you did? Right. Mom, I just listen, give me a PET scan, whatever you got to give me, I need it now. I'm not going by what your norm is. And I think a lot of times we just don't do that. We kind of just let our doctors lead us. But God gave you that intuition thing, that thing.
You have to trust it.
To trust it. And even if you're a loved one, even if it's not you, you can see the signs. You know when something's not right with someone that you're close to.
Without a doubt.
So I would suggest if you do have a loved one that's showing patterns and they're not really normal or doing things that they normally do, get what you said, because at least this way you can rule it out.
Right. And that's pretty much what's most important for everyone is recognizing that most of the time when someone gets an Alzheimer's diagnosis, whether they're 65, whether they're 80, they have been showing signs of memory loss sometimes 10 years before that. And it could just start with a simple, I can't find my keys. I know that I had them. Now, that's one thing. And sometimes when our minds are full, and I do want to make sure I stress that, I don't want to make anyone paranoid in what I'm saying, but when you know your loved ones best, and when you are noticing that they are becoming increasingly forgetful over time, the best thing to do is to be safe rather than sorry. So even if that means going to a doctor and being checked out, I always say, as it relates to a neurologist and the brain, you want to see a neurologist. If I have a plumbing issue, I'm not going to my AC guy, right? So when you're seeing, as someone that is a advocate or a caregiver for someone, you are going to want to encourage them to see a neurologist so that neurologist who specifically specifies in the brain and making sure that the brain is okay can do their due diligence to rule out, okay, no, she's just getting older. The older we get, the more responsibilities we have. Right. We are not as quick on our feet to recall. And so my rule of thumb is, as long as you remember you forgot, you're okay.
Right.
But when you are putting the keys in the fridge and you're completely oblivious to that, which is one of the signs when you have a loved one that becomes increasingly paranoid, where it's, people are stealing from them, and it's simply because they've misplaced their wallet multiple times. That's one of the signs. When someone's not managing their hygiene like they could, or they're forgetting to take meds or forgetting to eat. Those are all some of those red flags that we all need to be more aware of. And because we can champion for people we love, whether they're our family members or not, if we see it and we can do something about it sooner rather than later, then hopefully a physician, a neurologist can get some medications in the system in enough time to stabilize
to
stabilize the disease. Yes,
and that's what I tell people all the time. We have to not be ashamed of something that we have no control over.
Correct.
And I know a lot of times people are stubborn. They're like, well, I don't have it. I'm not going to go. That's not me. This is not. But my thing is, this is why, like you said, these doctors are in place to help us. And again, the best thing to do is rule it out, because I know me as a hypochondriac, right? When I've had every disease known to man, in that waiting incubation period in my mind mentally while I have this rare disease, I am stressed out about it. Like, it drives me crazy. And I think I get sicker just thinking I have it. And then I swear, the minute they rule it out and say, "Oh no, you're fine," I'm like, "Oh,
the relief."
Right. It just, something changes. But I think in the back of your mind, when you always think something may be, but you just like, I'm brushing it off, you're always going to be stressed about it.
Absolutely. And the truth of the matter is, a lot of our loved ones, we do a disservice to them by brushing things that we see under the rug. Mm-hmm. So, there have been a multitude of times where I've had a family come in, mm-hmm. and I had to coach the caregiver to understand that this is not just about the client, it's about them, mm-hmm. and having to accept that this is the space that they're in, mm-hmm. and let's start working on a plan to do what we have to do, mm-hmm. to ensure that both parties are taken care of. Mm-hmm. This is generally when you are dealing with Alzheimer's and anyone with an illness. For the most part, you mm-hmm. have two people. It's not just the patient, and it's mm-hmm. not just the client. Mm-hmm. You generally end up caring for them both in mm-hmm. some way, shape, or form. But a lot of times when it comes to caregivers, they end up being negligent to their own needs, and they end up in burnout or crisis before the loved one that they actually are taking care of.
Wow.
So that caregiver burnout number has increased. Mm-hmm. It was at 57%, I believe, about a year ago. Mm-hmm. Right now it's like at 65. Mm-hmm. And of course, there are healthcare systems here that are trying to work harder to provide the caregiver with respite. That's what the mm-hmm. Adult Day Center, my model, is for, to provide respite to a caregiver that is at home with their loved one, mm-hmm. who is basically saying, "Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet?" Or when are we going to this place? When are we going? Every 5 seconds or every 5 minutes. I have some clients that are on about a 2-minute window of time. So I have of being able to recall. So I have an 8-month-old baby, and I have a client. She'll ask me, "How old is your son?" And I'll say he's 8 months. And literally 2 minutes later, she'll ask me the same question as if it was brand new. And I respond to her mm-hmm. every time as though she's asking me that question for the first time.
And I think, well, that's real important, because I think people are not trained to know how to deal with that.
Absolutely not. It's tough.
My responsibility, you just asked me that.
Right.
I mean,
remember, you just asked me that same question 2 seconds ago.
Yeah,
right.
You just asked me that. And I think, but see, that goes along with, that's why you need to know if there is a problem, because if you don't know, then you just assume that, you don't know. You're like, well, right. I don't know. I think you would have more compassion if you kind of know that this is documented, that this is actually a real issue now.
Absolutely.
So this is how the steps. So when the patient is diagnosed, and like you said, mm-hmm. of course there are medications, but then when do they come to you? Like, what's...
So what would make someone appropriate for me
yes.
would be that a lot of times they are in the newer phase of diagnosis. Mm-hmm. I have had clients come in with a diagnosis that might have been given 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago, mm-hmm. 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. But what makes someone appropriate for IMAtter is that they have the willingness to engage with others. So mm-hmm. from the standpoint of their physical health, they're generally in pretty good physical health.
Okay.
However, their minds are just changing, and they're becoming increasingly forgetful. So I'm not putting the expectation on any of my clients mm-hmm. to go out, order me something specific mm-hmm. and bring it back. That is just not realistic. I'm not asking them to go down aisle 5 and find me mm-hmm. the Cheerios and find me 2% milk and bring it back. I'm not doing that. That's not realistic or attainable for someone with a diagnosis of Alzheimer's dementia. But what I can do is I can set tasks for them that are attainable, that don't set them up for failure, right? So our clients are, they dance. Some of them can dance better than most of us.
Really?
Some of them can solve a math equation in 30 seconds. Sometimes less. So they're still, their brains are still functioning, and they're still very much people. They're just changing people. And they are people that need a little extra patience. Patience is the ultimate virtue when you are working or caring for someone with Alzheimer's, because every single day is a new day. Literally.
Wow.
It's a new day, a new experience, and you have to make sure that you are checking on yourself so that you can give to that person what they need, that you can pour into them good vibes, good energy, because they didn't ask for this. Nobody wakes up and asks to lose the memories that they've held so dear. Nobody does. And for those that are in the earlier stages, what you will find with them is they may not be able to recall like what they had for lunch or, what they did 2 minutes ago. And you know what? That's neither here nor there, as long as they're safe. But if you turn on some music for them, they can sing every lyric. If you talk to them about something that happened 40 years ago,
Child.
they can, if it's specific, they can tell you. And it's because the parts of the brain that are impacted first are the short-term memories. Those are the ones that go first.
Wow.
Yes, ma'am.
I never knew that.
Yeah. Listen, we learn something new every day.
So they can't tell you what they ate,
Right.
but they can tell you about something that happened 40 years. Wow.
Yes, and put on Ella Fitzgerald, put on Frank Sinatra, and I promise you they can sing the lyrics. If they know that song, they will sing the lyrics.
So I hear that music also is therapeutic.
Absolutely. We play music every day, all day. As long, when we're not doing other activities.
Right.
Because music there are actually, there's research and proven studies that have shown that music stays. It sticks. And it is in a part of the brain, as far as like the lyrics, and a part of the brain that's basically not touched by plaque until the very last stage. Maybe not even touched at all.
Wow.
So those memories are still very much there.
You have a question. Celicia Smith Gordon says, do you find that photos and videos of them are helpful?
Oh, absolutely. With the photos and videos, I think that those are always great things to incorporate with your family member that has some kind of memory impairment. But what you want to do is lead them. If you're the caregiver to someone with Alzheimer's dementia, you want to lead them and navigate. You want to encourage them and empower them to feel as though they're still doing okay, in the sense of, I wouldn't say, do you remember her? Do you remember her name? And even though you want them to be able to say your daughter's name, to say your great-grandchild's name, there is a high chance that they won't be able to do that. And a lot of that is because those younger children are not in the long-term memories. So they'll remember you. They'll remember for the most part, a spouse that they've been with for years. But the newer memories are the ones that fade first for the most part. But photos and videos are always wonderful. I believe in capturing the moment, and making them making them meaningful. So anytime that you can collect them, show them, I would absolutely encourage them just to do it with love, basically.
Right. And Celicia, you also said one time too about the puzzles, like the
Yes.
crossword puzzles and new experience, different things.
Absolutely. All kinds of activities. I mean, even if a person weren't to come to the center, I say that the brain is pretty much like riding a bike or a foreign language. If you don't use it, you lose it.
Right.
So puzzles are great. I mean, anything, some people do the Candy Crush on the phone. Some people, I have clients that like physical puzzles. So, we'll have like a 36 piece for some. We'll have, some of them are that great. I can give them a 500 piece and they can get it taken care of in a few days. But those are all great activities. Incorporating music, I have told caregivers at times, if it's the weekend and they're not with us, turn on some music, dance, bring the joy to them. A lot of times we're guilty as caregivers of trying to bring our loved ones to where we are. It's not about us. It's about them. And so if they are listening to Doris Day and it's 1965, that's okay. That's wonderful. You want to try to get them to share where they are in that moment instead of making it about a moment that you want them to remember something specific.
I like that. Katie London, you're amazing. You bring out the best in people. Wondering, love your guest. She's amazing as well.
Thank
you, Michael.
you.
And
Thank
it's
Michael.
so important because I tell people all the time, this type of thing that we're talking about is not it's what I call it's not a if, it's a when.
Right.
Even if you're not affected by it, it's somebody that you love may be affected by it. And we need to know that there are resources out there because, again, a lot of times we act like we don't know. I'm not sure why we just don't know anything. But, I try to make sure that I bring things that I think are hidden gems to our community because a lot of us are affected. But you don't really hear people talk about Alzheimer's and dementia in the Black community. You really don't.
Not like we need
How many
to.
PSAs do you see about dementia and Alzheimer's?
Right. There aren't as many as there need to be with the alarming rates that this is projected at. The Alzheimer's Association is they have a huge national platform. And that is a resource to caregivers that are newer in this and need some additional resources. There's the Aging and Disability Resource Center that is here in Palm Beach County that will actually work to help provide a family with assistance at home, Medicaid benefits, adult day centers, home health agencies. And that is a free resource. That is literally, you pick up the phone, you call the Aging Disability Resource Center, and they will help you navigate your way through. And then I do try to be a resource. I've always said to families, even if I don't know the answer, I will find the answer out. Or I will get you to the person that can give you the answer if necessary. So, it's all about knowledge, and once you have it, it cannot be taken away. When you know better, you do better. And I think that we all have a responsibility to one another, especially when it comes to our communities, to advocate for those that may not have anyone that's advocating for them, to check on them. And when we see that something's not right with someone we love, some way, shape, or form, we have to have a tough conversation about it.
You do.
A lot of us kind of shy away from tough conversations because we are concerned about feelings and making sure that we don't step on families' toes. But it's just a matter of picking up the phone and saying, this is what I need. This is what needs to happen. Mom is not okay, and she hasn't been okay for the past 5 years. We cannot.
5 years? Wait a minute. Oh.
Listen, sometimes it's like that, or 10.
Let me tell you something. If you let your mama go 5 years without being okay, shame on you. I'm just saying. I'm looking you straight in the eye. 5 years. Let me tell you, my mama can be acting cuckoo in 5 minutes, and I'm like, I'm gonna need you to get yourself together. Are you okay, woman? You know what I'm saying? So 5 years, we gotta be more aware of our surroundings and people, because like you said, people, and you can't brush it off. If people are forgetting or acting erratic and bipolar and just mood swings and you gotta check on people and say, are you okay? And again, it's that tough conversation. Because it's hard for people to admit that they are not feeling their best. Right. For me, I have no problem. I'll be like, girl, I need counseling. I'm breaking down. Pray for your sister. Whatever. But everybody is not
that way, and
that transparent to say, I need help. And sometimes they don't even know they need help. Maybe it's something that they're doing that they think is still normal. Celisa says, please speak on outlets
For close
givers
caregivers.
and spouses, adult children. It's tough when your loved one says, "Who are you?" Yeah, we just said that.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I actually facilitate a caregiver support group. I didn't say that. That support group happens on the first and third Tuesday of each month at 10 a.m. And I am open to facilitating more. I can go to a church, wherever it is necessary to be impactful for families. I will do it.
Right.
But as far as outlets for caregivers, I suggest really being a part of a support group. When you have family dynamics, which I deal with all the time, where there are multiple children involved, where you have the primary child that's right here dealing with mom and dad or mom or whatever the case may be, and then you have maybe 3 or 4 other children spread out throughout the country. Most of the time it's the primary caregiver that sees it, knows it, and feels that something isn't right. And because those other children come in and get glimpses of the situation, they think mom and dad are okay. But that is not always the case. And you have to be able to say, I am here. I am the advocate. I see it. I've taken notes. Mom was doing this. Mom has sworn up and down somebody is stealing from her, that I'm stealing from her, because that happens. And while it is a tough conversation, you owe it to your parents, to the person that you love, to stand up for them and say, listen, whether you all are going to support me in taking him or her to the neurologist, I am taking her tomorrow.
Right.
And y'all, you just going to have to either get on the train or be left, because at that point, it is about making sure that their wellness and their mind is okay. And it is tough. I'm not going to beat around the bush and say that a lot of times our family can work against us. But when it comes to our healthcare matters, it's just a matter of, like Carl said, some conversations save lives. And that's exactly what it's about. It's about being proactive and not reactive. And taking advantage of resources before you hit the crisis. Because what can happen, I'm going to give a worst case scenario, is that if you don't address memory issues and your loved one actually becomes exit seeking, or they have elopement issues where they actually wander, then we see the silver alert, because they're missing. I have had situations where a senior got the keys to the car and ended up 250 miles north of here. Okay? So it is about wanting to protect the person that you love, regardless of the judgment and the opinions of everyone else. If you are in the paint with them, in the trenches with your mother, father, aunt, whomever it is, and you see it and you know that they are not the same person that they were today, that they were even a year ago, then it is time to have a conversation.
Right.
Whether it's with the family or the doctor, somebody.
Right. And also, too, to our busy children, I know a lot of us, we are busy and we have lifestyles and we're busy. And, even with my mom, we had a talk, too, where, I have to now plan to go to the doctor with her, because you just got to be there, and especially when they get older, the doctors talk a little faster and they get more confused.
Don't have time for you.
Right. And it's these medications. I mean, my mom just had an issue, with the kidney where we're still going. But now I'm like, I got to go with you now. Like, I got to see what you're doing. I got to see what you're taking. I got to know, because we have to have that second ear sometimes, because as they get older, they get more confused and they're nervous and they're scared. And so I would just say a call out to children. If you do have parents that are aging, we're all busy, but start going to the doctor appointments with them. I know they have them often.
Right.
Every 2 weeks. But just like they took you to the doctor when they took off work, right? We had those kids when they took off work to take you to the doctor. now it's time to, give payback. We,
Return
like I
the
said,
favor.
right, we switch roles. As we get older, they start becoming, our dependents. And I mean, I know they hate to say, I'm not your dependent, I'm your mama.
Right.
But
I'm the
anyway,
mama.
I'm the mama. You ain't gonna tell me what to do. But at the same time, it's like we care about you and we see something happening and we want to be your advocate. So I tell parents too, if you're looking, your kids are like, what do you call the boomers now? What they used to call
Yes.
the boomers, right?
It's the
and
baby
your kids,
boomers.
the baby boomers, right? And your kids want to make sure that you okay. Let them take care of you. Like, let them be that, because there's so many people who don't have family members that care about them.
So many.
I mean,
It's
you
sad.
know when the storm comes, when the elderly has to be checked on, and they haven't been checked on in 3 days because everybody's gone.
Right.
Daddy might be in his wheelchair for 3 days in the house by himself. And it's heartbreaking. But there are people that live like that because their family is just too busy, don't care. I don't know, but I just don't see how you can allow that to happen when you love somebody.
Right.
So if you see the signs, like I said, I would, like you said, I'm a hypochondriac, so I'm always going to be
Err on the side
safe.
of caution, as they
Right.
say. Yes.
Yeah, but we have insurance, and that's what we need. We pay insurance. You got to use it.
Right. And as it relates to that, there are actually neurologists that will see someone at no cost to them.
Wow.
That there are studies that are out here that are absolutely free. It's just a matter of a person going to a neurologist that focuses on research and being a part of a study that could possibly save their lives, or at least plateau them to a point where they can function day to day and they don't have many declines. Now, of course, I'm not saying that to say that the medications that are out there are going to be the end all and the savior to Alzheimer's, because right now there is no cure. But if someone, there is a big difference between seeing the red flags and getting someone to a neurologist in enough time that they can detect it early enough that they can be stable for years. And versus waiting until they've actually gotten out the door and ended up on Congress Avenue. And at that point, they are already moderate to severe, and there aren't as many medications out there for them. So that's really why there's such a big push in the Alzheimer's world to get people to see a neurologist, to focus on early detection. Some people who have it or are concerned, maybe their mother had it, maybe their father had it, maybe their aunt and grandmother had it. Those are I would say perfect candidates to see a neurologist that focuses on research, because there are studies that specifically are geared to those with the genetic traits.
Right. So I'm going to have to go get checked at 75. What, 65?
65, but hopefully
Michael Rose says smoke weed. I cannot with you. Smoking weed. So these are the natural, those are the
natural remedies.
Natural remedies. I mean, but in all fairness though, they do have things that they tell people that are brain foods. Like I've been researching a lot of stuff. Superfoods, brain food, superfoods. I've heard turmeric. I've heard a lot of different. You can
Turmeric is that's a hot commodity. I mean, there are a couple of things like a study, I think, in India.
We have what is that called?
Ginkgo.
Yeah.
I've never
and
ever
something
said that,
has
yes.
with a P. Prevagen.
Okay, Prevagen. I do,
Prevagen, I need you to pay me some money because I'm talking about you on my show.
Yes, and I do want to say, and it's nothing against Prevagen at all.
Oh, okay, maybe I don't.
Prevagen is a over-the-counter medication. It has not been approved by the FDA.
Oh.
And it does not cure Alzheimer's. So let me just make it, and I hope the folks from Prevagen don't come and beat me up, but I have always promised to be transparent and keep it real. Prevagen is not, there are no neurologists that will sign off on Prevagen at this point, because there have been some things that have been put out there that because this illness has become so popular, that's a quick fix, and it's making a company a lot of money.
You know what? I'm going to call out. That's what I'm going to have January. I need to have a neurologist on my show. I have some doctors, but I need a neurologist because I think the brain is so important.
It is.
But actually, no, I wasn't doing People of Power. But fast forward, I got Bell's palsy, and when I tell you, I don't know if a lot of people don't know what Bell's palsy is, and it was so funny because when I went, I think that week, my doctor was like, "This is the second person like this week that came with it." I knew one of my friends at work had it, well, actually 2 people. And a lot of people don't know, like you wake up and literally think you're having a stroke. Like my left side,
facial drooping or something.
Right, I was freaking out because I thought I was having a stroke, and when I went, the doctor said, well, she even, and I heard him leave. He's like, well, get her tested. She either has Bell palsy or she had a stroke. And I'm sitting here listening to him like, what? And he said it so casually. And I'm thinking, I had a stroke. But of course, it straightened itself out. Right. But it's all with the brain. And sometimes, if I get stressed. Right. If I get stressed or something, I'll feel tight. And that's why I ain't letting y'all stress me out. Okay? I'm not going to be walking around here with a droopy face. Because y'all stressing me out. So that's why I take some people like, oh, girl, I'm like, listen, at the end of the day, certain things I can't change. I can't change what people do. I can only change how I react. And I'm not going to be around here twitching like this because y'all won't leave me alone. Right? But that's what I'm just saying. I didn't say that. But it's true because a lot of stuff is stress related. For sure. But I do want to definitely have a neurologist because I know a lot of my followers and friends, they suffer from migraines. It's a lot of stuff going up here that we need to talk about. And it affects the strokes. Like it's a big thing. The signs, when a headache is not a headache. Aneurysms. One of my best, dearest friend's sister died of an aneurysm. And she was 46. Oh. No signs of sickness.
At all.
And died like that. So every time I get a headache, I'm like, oh my God.
Right.
I got an aneurysm.
Right.
But you gotta, it's all like this brain. So, yes, I need a neurologist on my show. I really do. I think that's January. I'll find one.
That'll be good. I got you too. I got you for a couple.
Oh,
I do.
Even better.
I was going to say that for caregivers, one of the last points for this is to make sure caregivers are taking care of themselves.
Yeah.
Because of how impactful this disease can be on one person that's the advocate, 5 people. It doesn't matter the amount, but what it does is it strips the family away of their memories. I call Alzheimer's the largest beast I've ever known. I have seen clients come in at their best and they might have had one crisis and they dipped to the point of not returning. And a lot of times it does happen, when they're more confused. Maybe they fall. Sometimes a lot of falls happen at night for seniors. That's just the facts. But with a brain that is not healthy, that has amyloid plaque and tau, generally when they wake up or at night, they tend to be a lot more confused. And it's just because the brain is just not settled. It's not functioning like you or myself. And so a lot of times they do have falls. I had a client who just fractured seven ribs few months ago at night in the bathroom. And so it's just really important for caregivers to take care of themselves, to be honest with what you can handle, and to really create some boundaries as far as saying, I'm capable of doing this, but to not be so prideful that you don't get help.
Right.
To not pick up the phone and say, Kitty, I have been taking care of Mom all day and she is wearing me out. There, if the village for the most part knows that there is some trouble, if you have a good village, they're going to wrap their arms around you and support you. But if you don't have a village, you can create a village. And you can do that by going to support groups, getting out there and seeing that while you may feel alone within the 4 walls of your home, that there are so many people, unfortunately, that are out there that are experiencing something very similar. And that then connects you. This is an illness where a lot of people kind of shy from it. It's almost like they think that
Well,
you
we're
can
talking
catch
about, like,
Alzheimer's.
we're talking about just like mental illness. Like, I think, 2020, I pray that Wakanda starts realizing that, we are strong. We're strong.
Right.
But we fall sometimes. We get weak. We need help. Whether it's dementia or mental illness, like if something's not right, reach out to people. It's so many resources. And like I was telling you, we have people in other races. I mean, they get mental health issues, therapists at 8.
Right.
7. They're seeing the therapist, and it's not because they have the money, but they know where the resources. If you have a decent insurance, you don't have to even have the best insurance. Research about the mental health. Research about the therapy, because it's there. 9 times out of 10, they have it.
Yes.
And if they don't have it, there are other resources that you can get, but get the help you need.
Some kind of help.
Some kind of help.
And a good start for a lot of people dealing with this is to find a support group that may be local, where you can connect with people that ultimately do have other resources to connect you to.
Right.
Especially if you're in the newer phases. So a lot of my families that come to IMAtter, they are trying to find a community that is dealing with this, that they can basically have as a village. And it doesn't hurt. Just because you are seeking help doesn't mean you love your loved one any less.
Right.
Just because you ask for it. They say you have not because you ask not. If you don't seek out counseling service, if you don't look for a neurologist is not going to show up at the door and do an exam on mom or dad. You have to take that step and say, I know that this is for our good. This is for the greater good of all of us. And ultimately to hopefully add value and quality of life to the people that I love so dear. So,
and I wanted just to like, for a selling point for IMAtter, so people that looking or just joining, it is an adult day center.
Yes.
Okay. So for people, because a lot of times, again, I think when aging adults, they kind of lose their, I wouldn't say freedom, so to speak, but just not able to do everything that they could do. It kind of gets depressing. And then when you think about, if you said a day center without an open mind, I'm not going to no day center. I'm grown.
Sound like a daycare.
Yeah, daycare. Right. We're gonna be changing my diaper too.
Right.
So I just need to, just for a selling point for people that, what are the hours and who's a candidate and that.
So we are actually one of the only day centers that's open 6 days a week. We're open Monday to Saturday. Our hours are 8:30 to about 5:30. We're slightly flexible because we're mom and pop owned.
Okay.
I'll call it dad and daughter. And on Saturdays we're open from 10 to 4. The most appropriate candidate for us, they really just want to hang out and have a good time.
Okay.
We have clients, unfortunately, that used to be business owners. I have a pediatrician, I have teachers, I have social workers, and I have homemakers. I have some brilliant people in my place. They have just unfortunately been victims of circumstance. So in our case, we look for clients that are wanting to listen to some good music, wanting to participate in activities. We have paint therapy, we have music therapy, we exercise every day, we have chair yoga, we have Zumba Gold, and we also have chair aerobics every morning at 11:30. And if you come there, we actually provide you with breakfast. We have 2 snacks and lunch as well. So we will also do med management. So if a caregiver says, a lot of times they're still working, especially younger caregivers. So we will have their mother or their father or whomever they love with us, and we will deal with their medications as well. So overall, we deal with the wholeness of a person and making sure that they are stimulated throughout the day, cognitively and socially. we say IMAtter, but we try to stay away from daycare. I don't like that word because it is demeaning to adults that are older. Unfortunately, that's just the grid, the umbrella that we fall under via the state. But a lot of people just call us a senior center because we have a pool table in there. We have a man cave. So it's a fun place. There, I would want to go there with.
So do you?
65
So for people
or
who are
60.
asking, and I'm sure they can. Like I said, they can reach you because I want to put like the information. But is insurance accepted or is it just self-paid?
So we are private pay. We have a contract with long-term care through Medicaid. And we also work with all long-term care providers. So if someone has a long-term care policy, that can actually go into play once that person comes into our day center. All we do is make a call. We get the policy information with the caregiver there, of course, and we see whether or not the policy would cover. And most policies do cover adult day centers. A lot of people ask if Medicare covers it, and unfortunately, that portion of Medicare does not cover it yet. But I am hoping.
You're speaking that to existence.
I am claiming at one point there are grants though. If you call the Aging and Disability Resource Center, and if there is let's say a financial hardship of some sort, and I fortunately, because I have autonomy, I will work with families. If it's a matter of being in a crisis or not and preventing a crisis, I will do what I can to try to work with their family as best as I can so that they can, enjoy the benefits of what we have to offer.
Okay, great. And we're going to put your number on top of the video so that way people can call and share it. But I just pray that people at least, like I said, share this video because it's very informative. Unfortunately, it's something that's going to impact most of us. It may not be all of us, but most of us. And anybody that you love, you don't want to see them when they're not at their best. So I love that you're giving, families a sigh of relief when they're at work and they're doing their thing because they're, that is stressful, like you said, with everybody. It affects everybody, every component in the family. It even will affect the pet.
Down to the dog. You got that right.
Down to the dog. Down to the, and I hear that pets are great too.
They are great therapy. Great therapy. I mean, it's not the same engagement, obviously, that, pets can't talk back, but they can feel.
Some of them bark back at you, child.
Yeah, some of them. Especially if they want to treat.
And some parrots, they talk too.
Yes, they do.
Right?
Yes, they absolutely do. But Florida is pretty much someone referred to it as ground zero for Alzheimer's. We're number 2 in the country with the largest amount of people. There are about 560,000 people in the state living with this. And unfortunately, by 2025, we're looking at about 720,000 people with it. So, knowledge is power. I cannot say it enough, the importance, and I do hope that I can be a resource to the community as much as I like. If as possible, if someone does feel that their community surrounding areas is appropriate for a support group of some sort, I'm willing and able. I just ask to be a vessel to do whatever I'm called to do.
Well, I'm glad we got you before the month ended.
Yes.
Again, this is Alzheimer's month. Didn't know that, but now we know. So every November, it's not just Thanksgiving. We have to think about,
those suffering from Alzheimer's dementia.
Exactly. So because you're on the People of Power show, you are now a lifetime member. Wait a minute.
Thank you.
Please explain the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia.
That's a great question. So dementia, there are about 400 different types of dementia.
Oh, God.
Yes. So dementia is the umbrella. Alzheimer's is a stem of that. And Alzheimer's and vascular dementia are the most prevalent. Dementia is not necessarily a diagnosis. You can live with dementia and it can not progress into full-blown Alzheimer's. Okay. So there are some people that may fortunately be told they have dementia, but it doesn't progress into anything more than that. And then there are also certain things that we do or medications we take that cause reversible reversible dementia. So sometimes people can get a urinary tract infection and act really skittish and sporadic, and you're like, what's going on? And it seems as though they have dementia, but UTI, of course, a UTI is an infection in the bloodstream that can cause dementia-like symptoms.
And you know what else too? You may touch on it, I'm not sure, but kidney issues, I heard.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So you do, of course, want to make sure that you're staying on top of that. If you know someone is acting out of character, maybe showing some very quick behavioral changes, you do want to get them to a primary right away, just to make sure that they are okay, of course, and to also rule out any possibilities of dementia. So again, dementia is the umbrella. There are 400 plus types of it. Alzheimer's and vascular dementia are the two most prevalent forms of dementia.
Wow.
Yes, indeed. But I do thank you so much for having me. I
No
really
problem.
appreciate
So you
it.
have to, what I was going to say too is like, any information that you have going forward, please make sure you share so I can share
Yes.
with the community. So because you're on the People of Power show, I consider you powerful. So you have to leave them with a superpower.
Okay.
And that's anything that you want to leave people with, something that you think that they need.
Okay. So my take home for tonight would definitely be to champion for people that you love.
Yes.
You know, there are a lot of people here that are suffering in silence. There are a lot of people that are too prideful to say they need help, but it is so important to champion for people that we care about. If we want them to stick around and we want to preserve their dignity for as long as we can, we owe it to them. Especially if we know about certain things, to do better for them and ultimately do better for ourselves. So that's my take home and my superpower.
I love it. I love it.
For the people of power.
Exactly.
How about that?
Hey. So please, everybody, I just want to say thank you. The ones that can join us, great. The ones that cannot, the ones that's going to join us later, when they watch me later, please take some of this information and think about all this information that we gave you tonight. I mean, I've learned a lot, and I'm sure that you can go home and you think about your loved one and you're like, wait a minute, you're right. Let me go ahead and make that call. I'm sure you will not be sorry that you did, because one is either going to give you an eye opener, it's going to give you peace of mind. One of the two is going to give you. So I'd rather for the peace of mind, but even if it's an eye opener, at least we know what to do, and there are ways that we can, like you said, delay the process, and hopefully it never ever gets to that point.
Right.
But if we just brush it under the rug, saying, oh, she's just old, or she's just forgetful, or he just, or whatever, like you said, boom, silver alert. So we don't want that to happen. Definitely not. And it will never happen for my mom, because I'm going to be on her like white on rice.
Till the end.
Ride her like a cowboy, okay?
That's right. Fight to the finish.
Yes.
And I'll make sure that everyone has my contact information if anyone should have any additional questions.
Okay, because you're right, because you are tagged on the video, and then you can also inbox her if you have any
Yes, you can.
off the grid questions that you would like to ask her about the center. IMAtter. So I want to thank everybody. The next time you will see me is I will actually be with author Walter Bond of Swim. He's a motivational speaker. I had to get him before the end of the year. I mean, he's like rah rah. I mean, he makes you feel like you're like invincible. When you leave him, you're like, I can do it all. I am she. You know that
That's what I'm
superpower.
saying. Yes.
Right. Yes.
off.
Pull the cape off. All right. So I want to thank everybody, and we'll see you all later.
Have a good night.
Bye.